So when we talk to customers, we see that there are a lot of preconceptions among hi-fi enthusiasts and so on. So from your experience, and that's my last question actually, from your experience, being a long time in the industry and also being a specialist for cables, what approach would you recommend people to take when they build a system, or even when it comes towards cables and other important parts of a system? How should they approach it? Should they read forums? What should they do?
It's a wonderful question, because it's a challenge for someone who is just beginning and has not bought anything more than a Bluetooth speaker before. Or, not to say I'm an expert, but I have had a lifetime of practice,
right.
But I am also still a consumer.
Mm-hmm.
And at the Munich Hi-Fi show yesterday, my wife and I were hoping that we could hear a few more things, or hear the things we already knew but in a different place,
right.
And get a little better understanding of what I want to put in the living room of my new apartment. I have this same challenge. And the reading, more often than not, distracts me and is a kind of noise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That makes me think something is important, when really the only thing that is important is, are you having a good time?
Right.
Hi-fi, the audiophile world, and of course there are really good, useful writers, and there are not so good writers, or sometimes there are fantastic writers who will make me fall in love with something that when I buy it, I say, what was I doing?
Yeah.
So it's a challenge. Music is the world's most popular recreational drug. Whether it's a society that chews cocaine leaves, or smokes marijuana, or uses alcohol, like most of the world, bigger than any of those is humans respond to music. Mm. And we do it for pleasure. I mean, sometimes it's part of ritual, it has other strengths and application, but for the most part, our business is one of the emotional transportation, I call it, connecting an emotional stimulus to an emotionally vulnerable receiver. And the reason we do that is because our music collection, or music in general, but our music collection is like a medicine cabinet. Oh, I feel like Herbie Hancock. I feel like Jimi Hendrix. I feel like Mahler. Mm-hmm. I want to feel the way this music makes me feel. Music changes the chemistry in your brain, because we are chemical. Mm-hmm. We're a pile of chemistry. Mm-hmm. And music is one way of changing the chemistry. So talking about, I can tell, I can close my eyes and I know I'm in row L, seat 5 in Munich, in Zurich Town Hall. Now the ability to close your eyes and have that feeling is a very strong and desirable attribute. But anybody who does recordings knows that that's not how it works. It's an illusion. Mm-hmm. It's a projection. No speaker sounds anything like real life. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry. So the idea that the purpose of a good hi-fi is to sound real, then all hi-fi is a failure. Mm-hmm. Trying to sound real is an important goal. Mm-hmm. But because we can't get to the top of that mountain, because no hi-fi sounds real, the most important attributes that a designer wrestles with are balancing the compromises. A loudspeaker might be a point source. I personally tend to favor a point source. Mm-hmm. Now the ideal is that all frequencies are being made by something with no dimension, mm-hmm. a point. Mm-hmm. It's impossible. So then it's a speaker, and it has sometimes it's a one-way, but even then it's not that size. Mm-hmm. So you get something like the quad that had circles with the time delay to give the sense of being a point source, which is a very clever idea. It still has other limitations. So you have a tweeter and a woofer, and that's an advantage. But then what about having a tweeter, a mid-range, and a woofer? The more you limit the frequency band of a driver, the less misbehavior and interaction you get but now you have interaction between sound coming from different places. So these are compromises. And mostly the customer should not worry about those compromises, but judge the result.
Right.
Judging the technology ahead of time, especially since we're a mostly male business, the male mind is inclined, I mean, it's everybody, but there's an inclination. We are mostly a male business, and it is kind of a more male attitude towards the world, to control it and understand it. And many times I had customers in my own store where the husband, the boyfriend, the customer is in the correct seat, listening in a triangle, and I might change the preamplifier, and he's listening. What am I supposed to hear? Which one has more feedback? Or whatever it is. And the girlfriend is over here and just says, that one's much better. Because she was listening to the music.
Yes.
And not trying to understand
Very
what am
true.
I supposed to like.
Very true.
So, and males often excuse that by saying, oh, women have better hearing. Whatever small physiological difference there is in oral acuity, you know, the resolution, so to speak, of our ear-brain mechanism, is no importance at all. In fact, I think my best customers, and by best I don't mean spent money, I mean the customers who had the easiest time understanding what was good in bad hi-fi were the ones who had difficulty hearing.
Yeah.
Because they are closer to the edge of not being able to enjoy the sound and not being able to separate sounds. And so they're not distracted by exaggeration or misbehavior and say, oh, wow, that symbol's so bright. And then 15 minutes later you're going, it's too much. They're much more likely to be in tune or in touch with the truth. So the idea that women have better hearing in the sense of physiological oral acuity, I think is absolutely relevant to what we do. But the attitude of listening to the speaker because it makes music versus trying to decide, do I like the beryllium dome, or do I want the one where it's got diamond on it, or is aluminum better? I think it's a mistake to think about any of those things. So I think that the strongest advice I can give is to find somebody who lives in that world, breathes, sleeps, the way we do. It doesn't mean that everybody in our business is equally good at it or equally honest, but I think the customer's job, in the sense that it's a job to get good advice, like if you're a business and you get a good consultant or you hire a good employee, is to find someone you trust who knows more than you, has more experience, and most importantly, will make themselves responsible for your happiness. Looking for there are some shortcuts, and I'd like to say that if it's a dealer that carries AudioQuest, that's probably a better dealer. but really, but the truth is, it might be another brand of cable. And if it's a dealer who takes the job seriously of making the customer happy and works with them so that they have something in their home, that when they turn it on, they become one with Herbie Hancock, or they immerse in Mahler, or whatever it is. There's no one speaker, there's no one amplifier. There's lots of good hi-fi, and there's also a fair amount of bad hi-fi. But even bad hi-fi, if it's better than what you had before, it's good hi-fi. You know, Mad King Ludwig or Henry VIII or whatever, somebody would have given half a kingdom to have a bad hi-fi, if they could have.
Yes.
So what we are offering is like a better car, but if you enjoy driving, then the worst car, as long as it works, is a magic carpet ride. The $172 car I had in college, when the road was smooth, on a moonlit night, I'm never going to enjoy driving more than I enjoy that. That's like hearing a good hi-fi when I'm 16 years old. Go, wow, that's amazing. I want to do that again. I want to be able to do that at home. And then we spend the rest of our lives getting better and better hi-fi and better car in order to have the same experience. The experience does not get better. There's connoisseurship, like with fine wine, or that you know how far you've come, and it's part of who you are. Sorry. But so when somebody says that the purpose of a good hi-fi is for it to sound more real, or to learn to appreciate music, no. If you don't already enjoy music, then you don't need a good hi-fi.
Right.
But the comparison I like for an automobile is, with that $172 car, the windshield leaked. When it rained, my pants got wet.
Okay.
And I lived in Portland, Oregon, which is a lot of rain. And you put your finger in the hole where the lock was supposed to be for the trunk or the boot of the car. It was not a perfect car. But like I said, on a smooth road, moon is out, good song on the radio. Not good radio, good song. It's perfect. The difference between that car and maybe a Porsche or a Mercedes or something I might be lucky enough to drive today is that same experience as the moonlit night and the smooth road, I can have that experience in the rain on a not so good road, late at night when I'm tired. It's not a better experience, it's the ability to have the good experience more often and more predictably. It's making the good experience more available. That's what a good hi-fi does.
Right.
When you come home after work and maybe you almost had an accident in rush hour and your head is not in such a good place, because you have a good hi-fi, you turn it on. And allow yourself, give yourself permission to be vulnerable to the music and follow. And your wife says, dinner's ready. And you say, oh, one more song, because you don't want to leave that place that felt so good.
Right.
In California, at one time I had a very good system with my Vandersteen 5As and Pass electronics in my room above the garage. I spent more time listening to music in my car, parked under my good system, than I did listening to my good system. Not because the system wasn't wonderful, it went far superior to the car, but once you make that human connection, so you're driving and the music is there and you're feeling good, and I come into the garage, I don't want to leave that beautiful feeling. And I say, oh, I could grab the CD and go upstairs. Very, very difficult to recreate the relationship. So as much as we talk about fidelity and imaging and dynamic range and ability to localize the sound, those are all desirable attributes, but they're not important unless they facilitate immersion, unless they facilitate a relationship in the present. Having the recording in the past sound realistic is a desirable attribute that doesn't matter unless it's part of creating an experience and a relationship in the present. And so the intellectualizing, the often male desire to put it into numbers and make it understandable, actually dishonors what is most important about what a good hi-fi does. So find a good dealer, worth trusting, and work with them.
One of the best AudioQuest customers just walked by. So, seriously. Seriously. So,
Thank you.
So thanks very much for visiting us, for making the journey here. It was very inspiring to have you here. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.